well, here's what I'm doing right now in my sketchbooks. So I've got one of the black panels that I prepped, and I can't wait to use it, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it. And then I've got my, I think it's Ranger sketchbook, and I prepped a page with this Daniel Smith watercolor ground. Really like this stuff. And I already did a drawing in here with that ground, this drawing, and it was kind of like, I call these like maps. Basically, this is what I do when I'm going to do a portrait, or I'm going to paint a portrait, or, you know, even if I'm going to keep it in graphite or color pencil, I'll do these maps, and they help me to know where the shadows are going to go. So for example, you see this swoop here is like, this is the shadow shape that is supposed to be here. Oftentimes when I draw the shadow shape. I draw the shape of the contour, the shapes that are available to me, and I'm not literally drawing a neck. So I'll draw like this nose and like, ooh, I see a shadow here, and it's this shape. And then later on, I will figure out that it's because the nose was here. So the nose is coming in right, you know, this is the shadow of the nose, essentially. And then in the original photo, the light's coming from above, so there's going to be heavy shadows down below. Anyway, so there's a lot of stuff to figure out when it comes to doing these little drawings. But I kind of love them because they give me a map, they give me a way to go and a way to start. But then I think with this one, I just kind of liked it as a drawing, so I'm just leaving it in there. Let's see, I did a test of some, actually did a test, I just drew some random stuff here, and I gessoed it with clear gesso, and then I'm drawing on top of that to see what I get out of it. I haven't finished it, I just started it, but so far it's interesting, which is fun because I have this colored pencil. So with the colored pencil, because I've got this kind of color on the bottom, it really picks up nicely the new edge from the colored pencil. It really, I don't know, it's something about the way that it grabs the pencil color and it holds on to it is really nice. And I like it. I sanded it with 1000 grit sandpaper, and I used this clear gesso, which was really nice. And I think I didn't water it down this time because I kind of wanted to see what would happen if it was just gesso, just clear, and just you know, how would that go? And I gotta say, I am really in like of this as a way to create texture and to create a moment. I really like it. I'm going to go into a bit of drawing. Actually, I'm going to lay this down next to it. So the black, this is another experiment. I don't know why I have the black one, but this is what I do. So I'm just going to like get started here. So ooh, I really like it as a surface. So I'm going to just say it like, this is just an experimental day. This is a day where I'm playing in paint and playing in colored pencil. And the fun part about this is that it really will not look good at the end. I mean, this drawing is an absolute mess, but there were things that were learned in the drawing, and that's why I do these little things. Normally, this is definitely what I do in my sketchbook, and well, let's say it this way. I prepped like 30 panels, and, you know, with covered in paper, covered in linen, covered in wood. You know, it's beautiful, the amount of prep that I've done. And I am just trying to take some of the work that I do in the sketchbook and put it out onto a panel, put it out onto something that is, if it turns out good, then yay. Yay, we have a good one. That kind of thing. So that's the goal here. And then I prepped some of the panels with this black paper. And to be honest with you, I've never even drawn on this black paper just in general. I just kind of have had it, and I decided that now is the time, and I'm going to mount it onto wood. I have a video about mounting paper onto wood as well. So if you ever want to check that out, it's there. I think it's called like mounting watercolor paper onto wood or something. Anywho, the fun part here is that I am being a lot looser with the drawing. So let's talk about the drawing. Let's talk about that first. Normally I draw with the panel or the paper or whatever vertical. And for me, that gives the most accurate drawing. So I usually do some kind of a sight size, and I usually draw with everything vertical. I'm kind of looking at it, stepping back, moving forward, that whole thing. And it really helps me to get a very precise drawing. Like I'm very good at the likeness. So drawing flat like this, it's not going to give me a great likeness because I'm not doing half of the things that I normally do to get there. So that's kind of part of the experimentation of it. What happens when you draw flat? What happens when you draw it upright? I drew a second one after this that is more like there's a little bit more to the likeness in it, but I guarantee you when I put that on a wall or put it vertical, I will see tons of errors. And I think that's okay, especially when you are a person who normally paints and draws realistically. It's good to go through these little exercises where you do things that are completely outside of your comfort zone, because in the discomfort, you're going to find something that is going to help with your practice. At least that's how I find it, because I can honestly tell you that I had never liked acrylic paint, for example, until I started using gouache, and then I used some acrylic gouache. And I think my big thing with acrylic paint today was, how do you clean up after it? Because it dries and it's stuck, it's solid. It is like oil paint, you can just scrape off with a scraper. Acrylic paint, you can also scrape off with a scraper. But it sometimes you can scrape it, sometimes you can peel it. And also I didn't really care for it being matte or whatever. Or not matte, shiny. I didn't like it shiny. But I learned that by buying acrylic markers, the acrylic pens, acrylic markers, and playing with like POSCA markers in my sketchbook. I bought Copic markers and did the same thing, played with the Copic markers in my sketchbook. Do I like Copic? Is like Copic my favorite marker? No, I much prefer an acrylic marker because I like the opacity of it. So drawing on black paper is fun. It's not my favorite thing, which is what I've learned on this, because I kind of don't understand how to like make colors normal. But I think in this painting I kind of like got a good ear, and I was like, yeah. Normally when I'm drawing, I really draw. I would say that this is one of like 10 that I'm going to do of Amy. And purely because for me to draw someone or something, yes, I can, do it on the first try, that's fine. But I find that it's really good when I have sketched, when I have kind of explored, and when I have looked at the person or the thing or whatever and drawn kind of all the aspects of it and really found the right image. So if you are like me and that's kind of what you're interested in, I think it creates a thing where you get really good, like it becomes choreography. And I think I know I've said this tons of times. It becomes choreography. Like you have drawn this person's likeness, this person's image so many times that when you finally get to the one that's like the, like the actual final painting, it is a dance. You know where to put your pen, you know where to put your pencil or whatever. You know how the shape of their eye, you know the sweep of the neck, you know that the head is how the head is positioned, and how not just how the head is positioned, but how this person positions their head. Hear me, let me say that, how this person positions their head. I think that that's something for me that is really important to be able to show, to be able to render. So doing drawings like this is, it's important, even though in the end it doesn't look great. In the end, and I keep saying that, and I'm not saying that as if I'm a bad drawer. I know I can knock this thing out of the park, but for it to be what I really want it to be, I need to do these drawings that are just kind of bleh. They're just kind of not great. They're kind of ugly, but they're an exploration, and they're an exploration in mark making. They're an exploration in finding the softness of the cheek. They're an exploration in finding the personality of that human that I'm drawing. And they're an exploration in materials. Like, I was watching, I love this show. Okay, I love it. I was watching Landscape Artist of the Year, and a woman, and it was season 7. Season 7 is a really good season of Landscape Artists of the Year. I really loved the art. But there was a woman who was painting in acrylic, and they were painting like a beach scene. And I'll let me write that down. I'm going to find the video and put it at the bottom. Anyway, season 7. Okay. But they were painting it, not a beach scene, but it was like a harbor scene, and there were boats and blah blah blah. Anyway, one of the people who was painting in acrylic pulls out POSCA markers and starts drawing her lines on top of the painting in POSCA markers, and I was like, "Whoa, that blew my mind." I was like, "Wait a minute, you can use acrylic markers on an acrylic painting?" I either my mind was blown, or I was kind of like, duh. It was so, that was the vibe. That was the vibe. My mind was both blown, and also I was kind of like, hello, you should have figured that one out on your own. So that's what I'm looking for when I'm consuming art. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm doing these drawings and things like that. And if, like, are you take now, what happens when you are doing a drawing and it's experimental, and you're kind of, breaking the patterns that you have created around drawing, like breaking your own rules around drawing and around painting, and then remaking them. So it's kind of like you're doing the thing that you're kind of supposed to do in art school, where you break down all the stuff you brought into the door and then figure out how to do it in a different way. Is it a better way? Probably not. But you're going to learn something. And that's why I do these drawings, because it breaks a pattern and it helps me to just become something new. So the goal of this session, the goal of the session was really about using just kind of any media, just not the one that I think is going to be the prettiest, but just the one that is going to get the most paint or whatever down the fastest. And I will say this, I was drawing, and I was kind of making backgrounds for future drawings. So I was doing a couple of things while I was doing this work. And I was using my editing acrylic markers. I used the Faber Castel watercolor dual pens, and I was using the Faber Castel what is that? Colored pencil. And then I go into using some gouache, which I think was the Charvin gouache. I haven't really used it a lot, but it's what's there on that palette on the right. And also, this one, funny to me, like funny haha to me, but maybe not funny haha to you, but using paintbrushes that were really big. Like, I basically, the only tool that I could have any sort of precision with was the colored pencil, because it's the only thing that comes to a point. Everything else was kind of the biggest width or version of the tool that I could use, which also makes a really interesting it makes the work really interesting to kind of attack, because you're taking away the thing that makes it easy. For me at least, I love a pencil. so so using a pencil will make it easy for me, but taking away that kind of rigor, it opens up things. The other thing about using the colored pencil, for me, I don't know about for you, but I don't erase my sketches anymore. So that's something I trained myself out of, because I used to kind of sketch and erase and sketch and erase and erase and erase and erase so much until it was just right. And in the sketching phase, I've kind of eliminated the eraser. And the real reason for that is because it forces me to use the lines that are there and to mold the drawing with the line, as opposed to eliminating something that wasn't quite right. And then, it forces me to deal with the fact that I put the ear in the wrong spot. you know like, what happens when you put the ear in the wrong spot? Well, if you're drawing it, if you're not erasing it, you have to deal with the fact that you've done that. Now, if I was doing a drawing in graphite, I would probably use an eraser, just because of the fact that with the graphite drawing, you can kind of see all that stuff. When you're doing something that's going to end up with acrylic marker or whatever on top of it, you're not going to see that again. I think the non-eraser thing came from using the acrylic markers, because you can't erase them, but also it just makes for an interesting, it makes it, I don't know, I feel like this is the land of making it more interesting. And I think that's the goal here. It's really, how do you make not just a pretty drawing, but an interesting drawing? And for me, I think that's kind of one of those things that's super profound, because I could make a pretty drawing, but interesting. That like makes you scratch your head. Like, what about drawing is interesting? How can you actually advance forward in your drawing skill to make something that is not just well drawn, but fun to look at for the person who's looking at it? How do you make it so that there was an art teacher that I had once, and he said that you should be able to look at a drawing and from afar and think, that's pretty cool. And then mid-range, oh, look at that, that's fun. And then you get close and it's like, ooh, it's like gummy bears. You just want to chew on it, because it's so good. It's so good to be close to that drawing and to look at all the fun things that are happening in there. And working, I'm gonna just say it. I'm just gonna say it. Working on ugly drawings does that for me. It helps me to say, in my work, this thing that I did, I can pick a thing out of it and say, this is the thing I want to carry now into my practice, because that was interesting. That was something that made sense in a drawing aspect, and it made sense in my ability to move myself forward as an artist. So I think in this part of the drawing, I am just going over it I'm just drawing with the POSCA markers. I've just kind of opened it up, drawing with the POSCA markers, and just letting that happen. And I don't know that I'm picking colors for any specific reason. I'm just throwing color down. And the same with the editing markers. There's literally no rhyme or reason to this. There's no rhyme or reason. I think the one thing that I really focused in on was drawing the eye really well, because that's just kind of a thing that I love. I love drawing a good eye. So that was the focus. Also, I was kind of trying to draw the ear, but ears are weird. Ears are like, there's a lot going on with them, but they can be expressed in just a few lines, a few like shapes can make an ear, which it doesn't seem like that would be the case. It seems like you would have to kind of really go in there and render out an ear. But I feel like the ears are kind of a piece of our anatomy where we kind of all understand what they look like. So you don't necessarily have to draw them exactly as they are. Plus, I think all the interest is on the front side of the face. It's not on the side of the face, which I think is a problem, because I really love in profile, like I said earlier, kind of what her head is doing, and kind of the fact that you can see her shoulder, the shoulder into the neck, coming through the side of her blouse. And I know that the next time I draw this, I will draw more of I probably will match it up to what is there in the reference image. Not because I feel like, the reference is always perfect, because definitely that's not what's going on, but because I like it so much. And I think compositionally, it looks like she's having a conversation with someone, which she was talking to me. So I think going forward, that's kind of the plan. But there are kind of things that I love about it. So I love now how that orange is kind of peeking through on the cheek. It makes the edge of the cheek look really interesting. I don't know why that's so far out all of a sudden. Actually, I do know why. I split this up into several drawing sessions. So yeah, it was all on the same day, but I think you're looking at like 3 hours worth of fiddling, because it takes time for everything to dry, and coming back to put the next layer on was literally an adventure. Because I didn't know how first off, I didn't know how things would react to that black paper. The black paper was a total mystery. The second part was, after I put certain things down, it was like a little conversation between the materials to figure out where things were going. There are a few things that came out of the drawing today that I absolutely love, and I will absolutely keep doing forever and ever. So I didn't show you this on camera, but I was also working on some backgrounds, basically building backgrounds, and building them out of gouache and clear gesso, and just kind of making a background that was cohesive but also just beautiful by itself. And I will show you the drawing that I did in a few minutes, just so you can see what that looks like on that background. And I just love it. I love the process of it. I love that how it accepts the gesso, not the gesso, how it accepts the gouache, and how the gesso kind of locks everything in. And then the fact that you can go over top of that gesso and sand it, so that it just gives this kind of really cool view. It looks deep. It looks like there's, not just a background, but it looks like there's distance in the drawing. So I really love that. As far as the black paper goes, it's not my favorite. I'm just going to call that out. It's just not my favorite. It's a Fabriano paper. The paper itself is fine. It's completely smooth. I'm sure it's going to be fun to use for another drawing. But as it stands right now today, not my favorite to work on yet. But like I said, I've literally never used this paper for anything. So it's always going to be like that when you try it for the first time. It's just an experiment, and over time you get used to the new media and work through it in that way. I think the other thing that I really liked that came out of this is that blue marker on the right there, the Edding marker, as a highlight. Like, for me, and I'm sure for you, but highlights are never just white. I usually, like, white is like maybe the dot, like, doop, of a highlight. And as far as building a highlight, that blue marker, wait, let me zoom it in for you right here. Look how it just perfectly kind of offsets that yellow, and just perfectly becomes just the right brightness or the right tone to say, boop, there's an eye there. I'm in love with that marker, and I'm in love with how it performs. And I think when you get to see the end product, it'll make more sense, because right now it kind of probably still looks a bit messy. I think after this, I did do a couple more passes, not many more. I think I went back in with some colored pencils. I went back in and just kind of added more interest to it, because I felt like that yellow was really, really, really yellow. And I wanted to knock that back a bit. But overall, looking at the painting now, there's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of interest in it. So there are some things with the black paper that I do like, but yeah, no, there's no but. I just like some of the things that came out of the experience of drawing it. Will I do it again? Sure. Sure. I think that anything can come out of practice, and if you do it for long enough, you'll get good at it. So And also this was honestly a good break from doing landscapes, because I have been doing a lot of landscapes and I love the landscapes, but I definitely am a figure, I definitely am in love with doing the figure all the time. So figure is kind of my default. Like if I'm just going to play in my sketchbook, figure is definitely my default, and I'll always pick figure. So I wanted to show you how it turned out. I really like certain things about it, like this passage right here with the, I mean, that just makes me so happy, that kind of like mixture of the colors. I love the ear. As I said before, the ear is like, it looks like an ear, but it's really just a few blobs on the paper, but I just love it. And I added kind of a purple pencil in there because I felt like it was going Laker colors down here. But I really love how the color melds together and the kind of passages kind of come together. And it's done. I thought about adding another layer on, but I think that it's done. And then, get this one out of the way. I started working on this one. So this is the one I'm currently working on. And you can see some things are coming through, like that blue is coming in. I have this other kind of earthy reddish tone, and I'm drawing a little bit over top of the passages of paint as I go. I really love this, into the neck area, this shape. Love that. And still working through like some of the likeness and things like that. But this is another one where it's an experiment, so it's fun to see how it adds up. And I think that this gouache that I'm using, I mean, just such pretty passages of paint in there. I just kind of love that. I love that look. But yeah, there are definitely some things that are still getting defined, and it's a little less abstract than the first one. But I kind of love I love it as a drawing. I love it as a drawing. Also, I did this background. So while I was doing this one, I was working on these backgrounds, adding gouache and gesso and things like that to make the backgrounds more interesting. So I have footage of that. I might show that to you as well one day. But I love how this background influenced the figure and how things look in this painting. I hope you enjoyed today's painting explorations and fun and the talk and everything. I will see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye, you guys.